Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Music, Life, and everything in between of the Loop Storytime episodes. My name is Loop Story, and with me we have the one and only Mark Cooley, aka Shuj Roswell. How are we doing today, Mark?
I'm doing great.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on the show with me. Like I was just saying a little bit before we started, I've been seeing your name around town for a while, especially over pandemic, and this is awesome that we get the opportunity to sit down and chat and get to see behind the curtain of Shuj Roswell.
Well, I'm excited to be here.
Perfect. Well, first things first, your name. I'm so curious of where that came from, and tell me about the concept of the name of Shuj Roswell and the project and how you kind of got into that.
Well, I'm glad you asked. It's always a fun story. Shuj was the name of my best friend's black cat. Um, he's since passed away, but he went by several names. Honestly, Johnny. The last name of my friend was Law, so Johnny Law, Johnny the Fuzz Law, and then a roommate of hers, I think, just started calling him Shuj and Shuj Bush.
Hmm.
So I I was messing around and doing my thing musically and trying to come up with a name, and I was just like, oh, Shuj, that's different, and it really stumped me on how would I spell it, and it turns out I was working with a guy who minored in linguistics at CU Boulder, and sure enough, he's like, "Yeah, SHUJ," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, duh, what the, exactly, that makes total sense." Because I was thinking, like, should there be a H on the end of it, or I wasn't sure. So it was just Shush for a couple of years, and I wasn't really doing anything seriously musically. I was writing music and studying some of my favorite producers and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what genre I wanted to kind of be in, and along the lines, I was hanging out at home one afternoon watching History Channel, and Ancient Aliens is on, and they're talking about the Area 51 and the UFO crash or the alien what the alien thing. It's Roswell, New Mexico. And I was like, oh, Roswell, Shush Roswell. That kind of has like a almost sounds like a name, like a first and like an alias or someone's name. Like that kind of works together. And then that's how the Roswell came along. So the Roswell is from Roswell, New Mexico, and I'm really big into the 60s sci-fi, mid-century modern motif. I'm really into that vibe, and do try to incorporate it in album art or show flyers. Anywhere we can incorporate it, I like to do so.
That's
And
awesome. Shuj
and
Roswell, good name.
yeah, yeah, and then of course the my Facebook fan group is Area 51, the Shuj Roswell Classifieds.
Hmm. That's awesome. So you talked a little bit about like you were studying producers and where you wanted to go with. Are you trained in music, or when you got into production and music making, did you have a lot of experience under your belt going into this, or was it kind of like I want to make some bleeps and bloops, let's start messing with it?
It was a little bit of both. You may appreciate this. My first introduction to real music theory class, I played saxophone in the band,
Nice.
so alto sax. Um, and I had some turntables when I was younger, middle school, and I was trying to scratch. I was way into hip hop, and those two things kind of gelled and found some way of combining. And then I got into guitar, and it was either a drum set, and or a guitar. And my folks were like, you can plug headphones into the guitar amp. You're getting a guitar." So that, which is fine with me.
Oh, absolutely, man. No,
I
no
was,
one, no one
I
needs
was
banging on the drums when you're 10 years old.
right, right. And I was a big fan of Metallica, and it was uh, was their music that inspired me to actually pick up a guitar. So, and then I discovered funk and jazz, and then it's kind of funny. So to look back at that
Yeah,
evolution.
the evolution of music processes and where you like I was a big ska head all through middle school and high school. Then I found electronic music and I found like jam band music and I was like, oh my god! It grabbed me and just kind of pulled me in. I,
Right, right. And yeah, and then in jam band, I mean that Grateful Dead and Fish just kind of took all of this stuff into a big pot for me, and I'm like, yes, this is doing it all for me. I love it.
that's awesome.
So, but
So you played saxophone in middle school band. You started playing drum, or you started playing guitar because your parents didn't want to listen to you banging on drums. And so, like, where did like you're listening to hip hop? You're listening to those influences. Who were some of the artists you were listening to growing up that you think influenced you as an artist now?
oh, so many. I mean, the reason I got into electronic music and production is SoundCloud,
Okay,
STS.
yeah,
You know, I a couple of my friends were buzzing about them, and I'd listen to them. They've played me this song or that song. I think Tap In might have been my first song by STS9 to hear, and instantly loved it. There were some other things I wasn't sure about. I'm like, I don't know how to process this. What are they doing? Um, and I finally got to see him at Red Rocks. I was actually there for Trey Anastasio, and
okay,
they opened, and we were had camped out all day for Trey to get up on the front row, and so I was right there, just saw everything that CS9 was doing, and it just blew me away. It's like I had no understanding of how their laptops and MIDI controllers were adding this other component of sound and these samples, and but for me, I'm seeing a band. I'm just
mm-hmm.
like, oh, God, I want to do this, and from there, it was pretty much, one of my buddies was like, hey, I'm grabbing the drum set. We're getting the band back together. And not that we ever had a band, but we just started teaching ourselves. And we wanted to not only make some sort of instrumental, I was really in a Thievery Corporation around this time too. So, make some sort of instrumental music that with a sense of improvisation, but some structure, kind of like just platforms that we could jump off and jam on. But we wanted this hip hop sampling type vibe involved. So it was funny. Like our first attempt, I mean, literally, it was like a stereo. Um, Remember those old stereos? Maybe not like the two speakers that could detach,
Oh yeah,
like this
that
double tape.
every middle schooler had them in their room.
Yeah, right, right.
It was
So
the staple of middle school.
we had one of those with a laptop and an aux cable going into it, and we're trying to play drums and guitar over that, or with that, and then we got that thing turned up all the way, and as soon as we hit the snare drum, you can't hear the stereo at all. We're like, okay, this isn't working, and so I mean, it was just all trial and error, and how do we get this going, and yeah, it eventually found its way into my first kind of jamtronic band, I guess you could say, that I
What
was a part of.
what was that first band? Tell me a little bit about that.
So we were called Gravity, um, and we eventually lost our keyboard player. It was a traditional band: drums, guitar, bass, keys, and the bass player and myself had laptops and MIDI controllers. It was very STS9ish. We did a lot of these slow building introductions into like these drum and bass D&B jams. It's like we got an 8-minute track here, and half of it's this introduction building up to this big drop, and then this drum and bass jam. Same formula as STS9,
Right.
more or less. We lost our keyboardist, and we went forward as a 3-piece, and we changed the name to Gravitron, and that just ended up fizzling out. Eventually, people kind of went their separate ways, and it's funny because we were doing something so much like Sun Squabby, and it's like, man, maybe we could have been Sun Squab, but yeah, it's cool to see that too. Like, oh, look at this. I don't know if they were starting up at the same time we were, if our path, if we were crossing or not. But I'm a big fan of Kevin and those guys too. So
That's Sun Squabby is probably hands down my favorite band that's in the scene right now. Like I've spent more money on those three guys than any other group that's around. It's because that again, it's that thing where like you see it and it just grabs you by the chest and goes, "Nope, this is your life now." It's we're gonna like my friend and I we bet on how long certain jams are gonna be. Like this is a 13-minute. This is gonna be a 13-minute one tonight. And you talk about STS9 and how those guys are the kings. Those guys are the pros of
right.
breaking it down, building it up, and then just dropping it hard. That when you do it, you're blown away by the the formulaic approach that they have to melting a person's mind.
Right.
Like, and that's so at like in your experience of the Jamtronica scene, when you are approaching 8 minute jam, this build up, what is your process for making something like that? Do you have a goal in mind? Have you over the years have you learned certain things work better for building up in certain frequencies, certain sounds, certain synths, certain things affect an audience a little bit better for you, or does each one have its own artistic approach to it?
Um, Real quick, I want to go back to we. I'm not saying that we sounded like Sun Squabby, but
Very different.
the three-piece thing.
Yeah,
As with your question, are you referring to like in the improvisational
yeah,
section, like in the jam?
yeah. In the jam section, because like you said, the STS9 where it's the extended build up where it just kind of drops hard. What is your approach to making something that
I
hits
mean,
like
it was
that?
kind of. I always um, there was a quote that I've always kept in the back of my mind from Paige McConnell, the keyboardist of Fish, and it's just kind of. I'm not sure how I'm going to paraphrase to give you the idea, but it's like first of all, you train yourself to have that musical conversation with the other musicians in the band, and you're constantly listening. It's
Mm-hmm.
not all about like, oh, listen to my solo, or I'm just gonna solo for the next 10 minutes on top of the band. It's people listening, and everyone has is saying their part, and your feet like you're like, oh, I like that line. Let me answer to that, or you know, um, so you got to go into it with that mindset, at least for me. And then it's how far can you push yourself? Maybe there's like 3 minutes of blah, and then all of a sudden the band just opens up into this beautiful emotional phrasing for maybe only I don't know 16 measures of it or something, and but you had to endure through all of that nonsense beforehand to get there, and if you didn't push yourself, it never happens.
Yeah,
So Paige described that, and I've always like, yeah. And that being said, there were some songs. It's like we know this isn't a huge go for it song, where this one is. Looking back now, it's kind of like, man, I almost wish maybe we would have approached the "this isn't one of those songs" and seen where we could have taken that. But yeah, it's just kind of enduring and pushing yourself. So,
and
and then sometimes hey, we're done talking about this, meaning the jam. There's nothing more
yeah.
to say. We're ending it.
The conversation's over. We've said all that because that. Did you ever see the movie La La Land?
I God, it's on my list. I
It's
have want to
like
see.
there's a conversation in it that like at the time I had kind of not become or not had lost my passion for music, but I definitely was in a spot where it wasn't an active part of my life. And uh, he's talking to Emma Stone, and he's like, "This improvisation in jazz at that time, when it was first invented and created, you had a bunch of people who spoke a lot of different languages." And they all sat in the same room and had to create art together. And so with music, you were able to have that dialogue. And once you start thinking of jazz and soloing and improvisation and full group jams as a conversation, then the whole shift of how you perform and create music changes very, very differently. Instead of I'm going to talk the entire time, it's you, me, him going back and forth. And it creates my entire approach to soloing changed after I thought of that, of just how are we communicating back and forth to each other.
Right. And then you got to also take, your ego into consideration. You just got to become egoless, and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, now let's take it to this next stage. We're up here and we're just a filter playing off of the audience and the crowd, and feeling them, and they're part of the conversation too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's it can be difficult. Sometimes you have some jam sessions with some people that just aren't willing to let go of their ego, and they just want to be the one talking the entire time. And it happens. It takes training.
Yeah.
It takes practice. So
And that, I mean, those groups don't usually end up being as successful. Like that's a different group. That's a rock band that has a lead singer or a lead guitar player. It's
yeah,
not the jam bands. Okay, so you have this three-piece suit that you're working with for a bit, the Jamtronica that incorporates the SDS9. You're doing some hip hop. You're doing some funk. How does that project evolve? You said that one kind of fizzled out. How does that evolve into the Shuj Roswell project, or was there anything in between Gravitron and Shuj?
there was nothing in between. I wasn't ready to. I picked up on this release and this feeling of creating music. The band breaking up. It was like going through a divorce for me. Um, and I'm really all about. I want a band. I want to like go rehearse a couple times a week and hang out with my friends and write music and just converse musically. Um, and that was gone, but I wasn't ready to give away the feeling. The feeling of playing, performing on stage, too. It's just, um, man, when you get that
Unreal.
bug, it's hard
It's
to let,
unreal, man.
and that kept driving me and driving me. And I think I started out taking some Gravity songs and maybe repurposing them into a one man type, more of a DJ producer type environment, and like, how could I pull this off just by myself? Um, and I started. I there's a few songs on the first album I released where they're straight up Gravity reworks,
Hmm.
and it just evolved into that, and then um, I was trying to. It's kind of like, what's the next step? What do I do here? I met up with Brian Lundgren, Mux Mool. He introduced me to Michael Minert, and here I am.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so
So,
you signed on with Michael Menner in 2015, and
yeah.
and like I know that you have a few tracks that you've collabed with him on. Tell me about signing, like getting onto that label, because like Menner, I was actually just listening to his Frasco podcast interview from last week, like the other day, and the dude's a genius, and he interprets music in a very different capacity. So when with that label kind of supporting you and pushing you, do you feel that? I mean, do you feel that his music and his style helped you create your own voice as a solo artist?
I think, I mean, Superbest Records, it was more of a collective. It wasn't
Hmm.
like I, I never signed anything. It was made very clear, hey, just because you're getting together with me doesn't mean you're going to have 1,000 Facebook likes tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all on you, and it's your job to develop, from a business side of things. Anything musically you have questions about, you want to run by me, you want to know how to do this or that, or hey, how do you get that thump out of your kick drum? Michael's there for that. Um, and then of course, you get to be one of the, if he decides to bring a Super Best Records, act in as an opener. You always got that going for you. Didn't mean you're going to get to play every show, or get these awesome set times, but you were definitely welcomed in, and part of the family, and it was just a cool collective, and a lot of great artists that are just crushing it now, and that were all a part of that as well.
Who were some of the other artists that were on that in that collective with you?
Um, Crooked Drivers, which Matty O'Neill was a part of.
Hmm.
Um, late night radio artifacts. Um, gosh, there's quite a few more. Grim and Darling.
Okay.
So um, I know I'm spacing some of them
Yeah.
now,
It's
but
quite a few people who are making great music.
oh yeah,
That's
definitely.
awesome. Very cool. So with as you like sampling is a concept that just kind of blows my mind of just being able to take this thing that exists and repurposing it for something else. As an instrumentalist, I've like you can kind of see what I got going on here. I'm very minimally getting into the idea of production and being able to utilize other stuff as a triggerable system. But how do you like when you're sampling, when you're listening to stuff, you just have music that you're just going through and go, oh, yep, okay, let's put that on, let's get that in that, let's collect the sample right now.
It really a lot of it depends on the track itself. A lot of songs start out as inspiration from hearing a song, and I'm just like, oh man, that would man, if I could take that into 4 bars, that would be awesome. Or if I could just grab that the tail of that and throw that in somewhere. That's kind of where a lot of my music may start from. And you get it, drop it in Ableton, and maybe it doesn't work out the way you planned. Other times, it's like, wow, I didn't have to do anything to this but tune it into the right key, and it's all perfect. Um, so, or sometimes it doesn't even require tuning. Um, but that those are kind of a few of those magic moments. But
Serendipity, if it may.
exactly, yeah. Um,
So,
it's well, go ahead.
please finish.
I'm trying to remember the question. It was sampling and
Yeah, just the concept of sampling. It's fascinating for me to be able to go when we're like, oh yeah, no, this is a drum track from this
right,
this or this Bootsy track from like '84, or this like just some funk or some hip hop track that's like, yeah, this is just a singular drum beat that I have then layered with my own kick, my own snare, my own hi hat, and then I've EQ'd all of it so that with like you Captain Planet it, when if our powers combined, you create this
yeah.
brand new drum track with a little bit of with just a whole world of percussion in it, or a whole world of samples put into it. So it's just fascinating for me.
And yeah, I remember where I was going to go with that now. So there are times where I'll just grab a bunch of pieces of like, oh, I like this, I remember this, so I want to grab this. I kind of create little folders on my laptop of when you're just getting in that creative mood, start going through these. So I may open up a new set in live, drop them all in there, and just kind of start messing around, chopping them up. Like, oh, I would use this part, I'd use this part, and eventually maybe two or three fit together. And then it's kind of like, all right, move all the rest off to the side. I'm going to work with these three samples. Maybe in the end, only one of them ends up working, and the other two don't. But a lot of times that it's just kind of like picking out these puzzle pieces and seeing if you can fit them together. And I'm not too much into sound design, so to say. I like to use the um, synths back there to add that side of things. Um, my beats, sometimes I'll get on the pads and actually play them. Sometimes it's, oh, this is a cool MIDI beat. But I'm always trying to put layers. Just my drum tracks have at least 3 layers to them.
Very cool.
Um, and,
So
and sometimes, sometimes once I've got a couple layers on there, I can actually take out some of that initial loop
yeah,
and just leave in the little artifacts. Sometimes it works to leave the whole thing in there.
that's
But
awesome. And so if someone were to say, what is your main do you have a main instrument? Do you have something that you kind of gravitate to at this point in your life, or is it all kind of just evolved into the production?
I mean, guitar is my main instrument for sure. And that said, though, I never wanted to put the stress on myself of having to have a guitar solo or having to use the guitar in every song. Um, and I also wanted to just say, hey, I'm gonna make this song without any guitar in it. And then when I perform it live, that's what I'm gonna like. When I start playing, like, how am I gonna perform this song live now? I add guitar lines into it. So it's like,
Okay.
oh yeah, I hear that song. That's I hear that song live, and he's adding a whole new guitar part in there that's not on what I hear when I stream the track.
Yeah.
Um, that doesn't necessarily mean it's some improvised part. I probably might play that same guitar part every time I perform it live, but that's just a new layer that's added. That happens a lot with my horn section as well. Um, so we can get in and talk about that. I did want to say with the sampling too, vocal samples. When I want to throw a vocal in, that usually, if I have an idea of what the song is called or the vibe I'm feeling from the song, I might start just by searching, song titles that I might get lucky with that happen to mention that, or if I'm already using a sample that it does have that and I'm triggering or something, that may become the song title.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. So yeah, you were talking about your live band. That's something I want to talk to because like Mark Wickelak and I we go way back. I've known Mark since like 2012, and then
nice.
and then Sarah's a really good friend of mine. And so like when you have the capabilities of creating all the sounds you need via a computer, tell me about like the reverse engineering it takes to go and write these tracks for a full band. Is it substituting parts? Is it like,
Well, I
are
mean,
you
it's
adding a new layer to it that you didn't have in original tracks?
the way it's been up until this most recent EP I released, Shuttlecock. Before that, it was more or less, hey, here's the main horn line, guys. Learn this and just play on top of it. And for Eric on drums, it's here's the drum beat. Eric learns the drum beat, learns the stops, the breaks. He takes liberties whenever it's fine with me to add huge fills, small fills, drum solo, whatever he wants to take it. It usually all works out and sounds great. He's a great drummer like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this last album though was or EP,
Yeah.
the first time I approached it with including them. It's like, hey, let's write the horn lines together. Let's Eric, let's get you in the studio. Let's record you on drums. I gave him some sketches. I gave Eric some sketches of and some ideas. Like I'm really trying to go. This is lo-fi. Going to be lots of reverb on snare drum. Kind of going for that Dilla vibe. Um, those real skip drum beats. And I mean, I think he nailed it.
Yeah.
So as far as the horns, we spent some time on several Zoom sessions uh, during the pandemic, and we're just singing stuff, and they play something, and then I may sing something, or Matt may sing something, and then someone will play it, and we kind of we lay it down and go back, and that's kind of how it all turned out. Um, for their solos, I mean, they did I think 3 or 5 takes of their solo part, and then I just kind of went in and I just tried to grab the best part of each solo and piece it together
Yeah.
to create something. So the solos that they played during Shuttlecock um, were not first takes, so to say. Um, and maybe one of them I only had to grab 2 parts. Maybe one of them I used a piece of all 5 solos or 3 solos that they did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um,
The
they,
Frankenstein magic of the studio work with the
yeah,
horn
they
section,
said
man.
that it came out real well. I really tried to pay attention last time I did this with a keyboard solo, and I think this you listen to the keyboard solo and it sounds like a guitar solo.
Hmm.
It's like then as a guitarist, I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is how I played as a guitar, and not that it's bad, but I really tried to approach their solos as how would a horn player, not a guitar player, how would a horn player, you know, put these phrases together? Where should the spacing be? I feel like I don't know, I like a lot of space in between my horn lines
Yeah.
to breathe.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's what it like. The silence is just as important as the sound.
yeah,
And
what Miles say? It's not the notes you play; it's the notes you don't play.
yep,
Something like
exactly. Yeah, and it's like That's cool, man. And like as a horn player, I've been in those studio sessions where you're throwing down track or you're throwing down that solo, and it's they get it. It's like, okay, we're gonna Frankenstein this together right now to make the
Right,
best one of it. And you listen to the final thing, you're like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, that is a solo right there. And sometimes it's exactly what you intended. Sometimes it's a little bit different because you tried something a little bit different that one time, and at the discretion of the producer and the engineer that's able to make that track come together in the most palpable fashion of what you were able to play.
right. And I got to give a shout out to Matt Wilkalak. I'm trying to remember if it was he does a trumpet solo in "It Never Rains in L.A." and I can't remember if it's that solo or the solo in Shuttlecock. I think I maybe had to only grab like a little 4 bar phrase. Otherwise, it was first take. So I can't remember what solo it was either, but he crushed it.
I,
So
those guys are pros. Like those guys are absolute pros, and it's cool. Like to see like between Sarah Mount and the Wilkalak brothers, man, those guys can play. Those guys play with pretty much everyone in the Denver music scene and the national scene. Like when people are coming in and need a horn section, that's who people are calling because they're professionals and because they set that standard of expectation. And it's cool to be able to be associated with them, be friends with them, and I'm coming for you guys.
I
So
know Kristen was like, when's Luke gonna have the Wilkalak brothers on?
that like because Mark marched Blue Knights way back in the day, like back in 2012, and I was actually on staff with Blue Knights when he was a member, and the trombone player for Float was his section leader, and or like when they all marched. So it's like this drum corps world that existed like a decade ago that were like, oh, cool, man, you're still like you're out there, you're crushing it, you're killing the game, you're doing it, and that's like it's awesome to be able to see people that I used to play music with when I was 21 and an asshole that's out there like that we've all kind of evolved from that degenerate young phase to being able to be professional musicians that are in the scene that are doing it and continuing to do it.
Right.
So let's moving on from that. One thing that is really cool about you that you don't see with a lot of people in the electronic and the producer scene is that you also are a family man, and you got like yeah wife, you got 2 kids, you got like tell me a little bit about the work life balance that you've learned over the years to be able to maintain healthy at home and successful on the road, because that is a balancing beam that many people attempt and not many succeed in.
Uh, it's a real easy secret. It's Kristen and I were married in 2016, and she has 2 girls from a previous marriage, and I love them all to death. And you know, Kristen, on her own, of her own accord, said, she initially she took a huge interest into my music and what I was doing. She actually wrote and even played a couple synth parts in a couple of the tracks on my albums.
That's awesome.
Believe it or not, she would never take credit for it, I'm sure, but she's responsible for then Snowblind, the Michael Minter song, that that's her. That's Kristen. She wrote that.
That's awesome. And so she has a musical background as well.
She has no musical background, but she loves music.
That's awesome. That's super super cool, man.
Time, and she can sing in key, and she's got a huge diverse. She likes everything, as much as I do. So music's a huge part of our relationship, and the girls too. They love coming in and playing with everything, and our oldest Lauren, she's 9. She has got an acoustic guitar for Christmas, not this year, the year before, and she's trying to do her best with that, and yeah, we have a great time. To answer your question though, Kristen told me I will never ever get in the way of your love and passion for music. Um, that's how it works.
That you liked it, so you put a ring on it, as Beyonce said.
I had two. I've been married before, and I was in another relationship. And I'm not saying touring or music was a reason for the split ups, but I'm sure it played some part. Just not being there, it's not easy.
No.
I mean, you're not home. You're rehearsing. You're playing gigs. You're, you know, touring. It. You're away.
Yeah.
So, you know, and to get someone that's gonna appreciate that and understand it, and understand that you need it, and it's your release and your outlet, and it's your art, and to be able to sacrifice that for you, I mean, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not saying that anyone else in my past relationships didn't try. It's not easy. It's
No.
tough. So,
But yeah,
and,
you're
I mean,
able to make
how
it
long?
work.
Yeah, and how long can you keep it?
Yeah.
Like yeah, I know I said that, but we're 10 years now, and come on, is it time to like? It's not as I mean, if it's paying the bills, it's different.
Right. Yeah. I know.
But
I saw a meme the other day, and it was my fully employed or my fully employed like wife girlfriend working 12 hours a day,
I posted
and it's
that.
and yeah, and it was in your page. I saw that and I started laughing because
Yeah,
Alyssa, my girlfriend Alyssa through Rocky Mountain
yeah,
Virtual,
of course.
and
Yeah, you guys are like, well,
yeah, she's a 16-hour a day teacher, and then I'm downstairs playing loops on my saxophone. I'm like, I'm gonna make it someday. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, and it just bless her heart for being supportive of it and being able to believe in the project and believe in the process of it.
I know teaching's her day job, but I mean, she's still part of your. Is she what does she manage? Float.
She no, so she is the co-founder of Rocky Mountain Virtual, and so Sarah Float's manager is her best friend from college,
Okay.
and
Okay.
so when they reconnected back and early 2018, late 2017, somewhere around that area, while Float was still kind of in its not infancy. The band had been around for 4 years at that point, but or like 3 or 4 years at that point. But when they reconnected and Sarah hopped on as manager, she steered fully into the curve of like, okay, here's the gig, here's the music, and it's that like the compromise and the figuring out how to make it work. But like my entire this whole looping project, Loop Storytime, I have to attribute to her. She's the one who got my loops, or she's the one who organized the fundraiser for my loop station for my 30th birthday last April. And like I've had 2 months where I didn't have to work, and I went down the rabbit hole. And so everything that exists, this podcast, the series, the shows, the everything, is all because of her chilling upstairs. And so shout out to the women that support you. That's
Absolutely.
behind every
Absolutely.
success behind every successful musician. There's a woman who is deserves a medal for dating a successful musician or marrying or putting up with. So shout out to the ladies and the husbands for the women out there that are hustling and
I was gonna
grinding.
say, I mean, I think it's Sarah Mount and her man. He's very supportive too. I
Yeah,
could think, I can be like, "Where's Cody? Oh, he's in the shed out back. While we're like just dropping bass bombs in their living room and in rehearsals. It's like, oh man, that's cool. Cody's just chilling. All right.
just chilling, doing his own thing, just kicking it. Nah, that's awesome. Um, so kind of moving on. One of the things I love to ask for the people that have been on the shows is your experience with performing, your experience with music, your experience with shows that have stuck with you. So like in your career, whether it was the Gravity, Gravitron, Shuj, what do you have a show that sticks out in your mind as the first like when you played it, you went, okay, I'm a professional performer now. This is something that's real. This is not just buddies hanging out. This is not just me screwing around. Like I am a professional. I'm going to do this for my job.
Um, yeah, it's such a tough one because it's so easy for me to say, oh yeah, I got that feeling at this show because there was a sell, it was sold out of there was this huge immense crowd there. At the same time, though, I don't think that's true or fair to say because I'm just saying, well, yeah, I could see a huge crowd. Yeah, this is awesome. Maybe the show sucked. Maybe I didn't play well or I was off or something. Um, and then there's that show where, oh yeah, you got doors, but you nailed everything, and it's like, oh man, I wish we had a packed house because tonight was perfect. Um, So I guess I'm kind of waiting for those two things to combine.
The sold out show with the perfect performance that just
Right.
resonates with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. But even with that said, um, it's always an adrenaline rush on stage, and I can remember that first time I really felt that when I played in, like, I remember looking out like, oh man, God, who was it? It might have been Thriftworks. We opened for Thriftworks at the Aggie Theater,
Okay.
and we had opened for some other acts at the Aggie before, and we weren't doors. We were like that middle no man's land section.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, and I remember looking out, and it's like 40, 50 people out there. Okay, that's cool. Well, Thriftworks, it was packed. I mean, the doors guy had a packed crowd at the Aggie, and I remember just being so nervous, like, oh man, whoa, that's a big audience out there.
It's real. It's real. People came to see you. Came to see Thriftworks. Came to see they came for a service, and you were there to provide it.
Yeah, as I'm like looking back to this, like, what are we playing again tonight?
Just scanning your set list over and over again. You're like, are,
um, Go ahead.
no, yeah. I was like, I sit there and I stare. I will stare at a set. Like, even in our small shows, I'm staring at my set list over and over and over again because there's just like I don't want to space. I don't want to miss it. You think you've curated this great thing, and then I don't know if you experience it. I know I have it on a regular basis. Just that musician's self doubt or self deprecation. Is that something that you feel where you just have that fear that someone's like, yeah, this guy's full of shit?
Um, yeah, and I think that's just a natural musician state of mind sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not often. I've never been on stage. I've never felt that out on stage. But sometimes when I'm putting songs together or trying to curate a set list, or like just doing something different, I might be like, I don't know, Kristen, does this sound like shit to you? Does this sound like I'm trying too hard, or does this sound natural?
The
It's
significant other sounding board.
exactly. So I run it by the band too, but they usually don't get back to me. They're just like, just tell us what to play, or not what to play. Just let us know what we're doing,
Right.
and which is
So
something I miss from actually, when that's the difference between this and like actually being like in a band where you're rehearsing. There's more of this is so easy. I don't have anyone telling me don't do that.
right.
And sometimes you need someone to say, dude, don't do that. Whereas in a band, you've got three other voices all chiming in, like, no, we shouldn't do this. This is a horrible idea.
Oh, I have six. I have six. Like we are a 7-way collaboration, and you can say that writing songs gets tense at times
Right.
because it is someone will come in with a lick, someone will come in with a lyric, someone will come in with a progression, and then from there we have 7 people just throwing paint at a wall and hope it turns into Jackson Pollock. Because you don't know what it's going to turn into. You don't know what that final product is going to look like
Right.
until you add the drums, until you add the horns, until you add the bass, until you hash that out and woodshed it out to become a real thing. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know what this idea can and will turn into.
Right.
And so, as
When
you're,
you take loop story though, or you take your looping thing,
yeah,
there's no one telling you what to do.
no,
It's all you. So you
and
know,
the beauty of this project is that it's that just the general concept of looping impresses people. And so like my first loop I ever performed was Stand By Me. And it was I had a bass line, I had a beatbox drum kit, and I had harmonies and a melody. And so like there was no creativity involved in it. It was just this I deconstructed a song and played it, and people were like, "Oh my god, that's so cool!" Because it was on saxophone, because it's different. So I thankfully have something different in my wheelhouse that people are
I
just.
would say there's no creativity involved though. I mean, you deconstructed something, you reverse engineered it, and then you did it in your own way. You pretty much took these pieces and you became the producer,
Yeah,
and you decided the arrangement, and now you're presenting something familiar in a slightly different way. Plus, you've got all of your own, improvised sections on top of that. So, I
No.
mean, I think that's, you know,
Well, oh, thank you so much. It's good. Like it's starting to kind of turn into something that's a little more real, which is super super exciting because I've always wanted to try to like I never thought I would be in a band in the first place. I was a music major in college. But I was going to be I was a music education major, and then at 21 I dropped out because school sucked, and then I went back to school again for like a semester or a year and a half, and I was like, yeah, this sucks, and just kind of put the horn away, didn't touch it for a bit, and then a few things happened. I went and traveled across Europe and took a little pocket trumpet with me that fit in my backpack, and through some bouts of depression and kind of dealing with the demons that I had never had to face in with groups, I was on my own, and you have no other choice but to deal with you just cage match those things. You're like, oh, here's some abandonment issues mixed with a little bit of insecurities. You're at a bar by yourself drinking. Let's hash these out for the next 3 hours. You're sitting there journaling, and people are staring at you alone. You're like, whatever, just conquering my inner demons. But I found, but on that trip, I found that playing music really brought me joy, and I would try to find a jazz club in every city I went to that had an open jam night. And I'd walk up with my trumpet and be like, "We're gonna play this jazz standard," and you're like, "Just what key are we in?" And tell me when to
what
solo.
key?
What key are we in? And tell me when to solo, man. And that's where I found I would rediscovered a passion for music, and then float kind of fell into my lap through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and then again, Alyssa just being as supportive as all hell. I'd been talking about looping and how I wanted to do it and how I wanted to do it, but never pulled the trigger. And then it allowed it to go, okay, here it is. Put your money where your mouth is. Start making music for yourself. And like you said, with the arrangement process, it's been recently that I've really kind of started to experiment more with how I can rearrange a song. So it is familiar, but it is tasty. It is not just do do do
Right.
doom, doo doo doom, and being able to create something that's different that people are listening to, going, "What is he gonna do? What is he gonna do? What? Oh, that's cool."
Oh wow, he just flipped it to a 3/4 time signature.
Oh,
What?
right, or just even like with the cool part of looping is that like with STS9, like with the Jamtronica, you can have 7 minutes of buildup, and the artistry of it exists in the construction of the loop and the deconstruction of the loop. So if you can make that part exciting, then when you finally get to the melody, you get to the chorus, and you get to the lyrics, people are already engaged by that point because they've been listening
Right.
to what you've been able to do. So,
Right.
well, and like,
I think I was gonna say, I think that's part of the genre too. Is one of the first critiques I used to get from people that necessarily weren't into the sound I was experimenting with is like, oh, it's so repetitious. Oh my god, everything is just like you're just playing the same thing for like, when's it gonna change? When's something gonna happen? And it's like, well, do you not listen to hip hop? I
yeah,
mean, if you're listening to instrumental hip hop, it's the same thing, the entire song, more or less.
yeah,
Um, I took that criticism and well, before I done, I want to jump ahead real quick, but I wanted to say that's part of that STS9 thing is you are kind of playing that evolving, building, but yet that repetition is like the foundation. And you just kind of keep building onto it before that drop happens.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, having a background and listening to hip hop and things like that helps lend your ear to understanding. Oh, something's going to be coming here. I get it.
yeah,
You know. So, but then the second half of that, with the criticisms I received in the early days of music and songwriting, I do try to in my electronic music, I do try to actually have a song arrangement. Oh, here's a verse, here's a chorus, here's a verse, here's a bridge, here's a chorus. Not every song has that arrangement,
yeah,
but most electronic music isn't configured that way.
no,
Um, so I do try to do that. I do try to incorporate key changes and add even in the verses, add layers, introduce okay, 16 bars. The next 16 bars has two new layers added on top of them, and I'm going to take away this part. So it's a lot of adding and taking away, and that's kind of, I don't know, one of my production things is to put everything into like 16 bars and then start removing things.
Yeah. Well, it's like salt and I compare everyone talk like music is math, music is language, and the one that I've kind of landed on is music is chemistry, where you take, I mean, just theory in general, you take oxygen, you add a little bit of hydrogen, add a second hydrogen, boom, you got a chord. You take a C, you add a C, you add a G, boom, you have a power chord. Let's throw this in here. And you just start adjusting and adding electrons and taking away electrons and adding protons and adding ninths and fourths and sharp 11s. You start doing that and you're able to construct this new element, this new concept, this new sound, this new progression that is really kind of cool. So with your layering and taking away, we're able to go, okay, here's this thing. We all see water. Now let's turn it into let's turn it into just oxygen. Or you're
Right.
cooking. Let's take some. Here's the full dish. But what happens if we take some salt and pepper out of this? What happens if we throw a little bit of paprika in there? What happens if we throw a little bit of cumin? What kind of flavor palette can we create? It's an auditory palette at that point.
Right. Right.
So super super cool, man. Well, I want to, but as we finish up, I want to talk to you a little bit about what you've been doing throughout COVID and the pandemic, and some of the stuff you got coming forward. I know you got some announcements coming out, um, but tell me like what's been keeping you busy, and what you got coming in the future.
Well, as soon as COVID started, I just needed to immerse myself in music and started the project that I just released there in February, the Shuttlecock EP,
Mm-hmm.
and really wanted to, again, try something. Like I had the time, and it was good timing. The horns weren't playing, so I knew I had, even though it took them 6 months to get to the studio. but
Those horn players.
I know, man. Um, but yeah, without everyone having to attend to their other bands that they're in, I was able to, kind of focus on that when I was ready. And so I put that EP out, and we did a couple live streams. Um, in June, we were able to do a live stream at Wave Layer,
Mm-hmm.
which is from Sun Squabby's, I believe, his basement.
Yep.
We were able to do that down there. That was a lot of fun. It was the first time in 6, 7 months I'd even been in the same room with other people. So, um, and then we just played two sold out shows at Larimer Lounge last month, socially distanced shows. That was a fun one. We kept wanting to announce sellout, and they're like, "Oh no, restrictions have changed. We can add 10 more seats." And then we sold those 10 tickets. Oh no, wait, we can't do a sellout yet. And it was just like, "Can we announce a sellout yet?" So anyway, that was amazing, just being back up on stage and performing and in front of people and feeling the energy, So, um,
And those lasers were super dope.
oh, thanks. That was um, well, so announcements. This will be airing. We'll probably announce this already by the time this airs, but yeah, we'll be doing another socially distanced show at Moe's Barbecue down south in Littleton. Um, Speaking of, real quick, I just want to interject. I remember hearing, Sarah went to Heritage. You went to Littleton,
Yes.
Arapahoe High School.
Okay, there we go. We got the trifecta right
Yeah,
there.
just wanted to say that. But so we'll be down there doing that on May 29th, Saturday, and I'm excited too because we're gonna kind of keep it in the family. They kind of allowed us some influence on the opener, and we got Sarah and Sam Goodman.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah,
Yeah.
the project's name. They're going to do the early 7 o'clock show, and
Okay.
then Shuj Roswell live band will be doing the 10 o'clock show.
Very
So
cool.
it's going to be cool. So I'm excited to bring them in and let them, if they get an opportunity to do some stuff and kind of keep it family. So, and Sam also, he played violin in Michael Minnick's big band. So there's Sarah with the Shuj Roswell connection, and Sam with the Super Best Records Michael Minnick connection. Very family oriented. So, and we
Very.
got barbecue.
There we go. And that is Moe's Barbecue off of Broadway in Hamden down on May 29th.
Yes.
So
Yep.
if you want to go see some dope beats for those watching, go check it out because like I discovered you over pandemic and with the Rocky Mountain virtual streams and the Wave Layers stuff, and just really dug what you were putting together. And I would, unfortunately, we are going to be on tour at that point, but I would love to, like, for those who are watching, I'm going to live
Gotta get out
vicariously through the
there.
pictures.
Gotta get out there and do your thing, man. It's quite all right. So
Yeah,
we're excited. This is gonna be probably a completely different show than what anyone might have seen at Lerner Lounge. So we are
super
bringing
dope.
some production. So bringing Mike Morgenstern from Lights for Clumsy. He's
Yeah,
the one that did the at Lerner Lounge, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be at Moe's. So we should have some good lights
very
going.
cool. Very cool, man. So, okay, well, we're coming down to the tail end of this one. Mark, it's been such an absolute pleasure to be able to sit down and chat with you and to be able to kind of learn about the process and everything that you've done to be able to make the music that you make today. So thank you so much for being a part of Loose Storytime. For those watching, as per usual, this video is going to be uploaded to the Jamcast Network on YouTube, and we. I hope that you are watching it. If you like it, please subscribe. Please share this video with your friends. Check out Shuj Roswell. Check out the Shuttlecock EP. Check out the live band. Go watch a live stream. Go buy tickets to his show. Go support like local music because it is coming back. It is coming back, and we have performances, and we have shows, and we have tickets to buy, and we have merch to buy. So if you like what you're seeing and you want to see more of it, go support your artists.
And
Thank you.
we
Yep,
just uploaded some videos too.
even better.
YouTube website. The website, my official shujroswell.com is probably the place to go. Um, but there's some live video clips from our last show, full songs. So
Very cool. Go, and that's shujroswell.com.
yes,
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show, man. And I look forward to everything that you're doing. And
thank
I'm going to learn that
you.
I'm in your next show, okay?
Oh man, yeah. If there's any flautists out there that are looking for a gig, hit me up. Always looking to add a flute to the band.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. This has been Loop Story Time. Tune in 2 weeks. We have a brand new episode coming up, and we hope to see you then. You guys have a great night and stay safe out there.